for taking time to come to our Insight event, Best Practice for Working with Ethnically Diverse Women in the Criminal Justice System. I'm really pleased to see that so many people have accepted the invitation, and I really do hope that you'll gain something from the event. And I have to offer now that if there's any questions that you don't get an opportunity to ask during the event, please do just drop me an email and let me know, and then I'll try and get an answer for you. So thank you very much for attending. I hope that you're going to enjoy it. So just to very quickly go through our agenda for today. So I'll be your chair today. Um, uh, so I'll take you through what we're going to expect. So after this, we're going to go through a lovely icebreaker, which is a quiz that will be led by one of my very helpful and wonderful colleagues, Yabsera, and also Sam as well. Then we have a lady with lived experience of criminal justice system who's going to come on and share her story with us. So I'm going to ask that while she's here, if we can sort of be very respectful. I'm sure nobody it'll be okay anyway, but can we be very respectful of her and sort of recognizing that it's not easy to talk about personal experiences, and I'm quite sure some of it will be quite harrowing as well. So we very much appreciate that she's given up her time to come and help us out here today, and hope everybody will just sort of be gentle with her as she speaks. Then I'll talk to you a little bit about FOME, and FOME stands for the Female Offender Minority Ethnic Working Group. After which we'll hand over to Hibiscus and they'll talk you through some of the work that they're doing, some actually wonderful work that's given them good results. And then we'll go over to the Muslim Women in Prison project, and they'll also talk about some of the work that they're doing. That will be followed by a panel discussion, and there'll be an opportunity for lots of questions afterwards as well. So that's roughly our agenda for today. So before I go any further, there are a few housekeeping rules that will be helpful for us to adhere to. And this is really just so that everybody can hear and see properly, and that if you do have a question, you've got the opportunity to say, and I can see you quite clearly now that you need to say something. So I'm going to ask everybody to just sort of keep yourself on mute unless you're asking a question and I indicate that, you know, it's good for you. You're able to then speak. I'll mute yourself at that point. I'm also going to ask you to keep your cameras off. And this is just so we can keep the spotlight on the speakers. I know you've probably been to team events where you've got a lot of people and you're trying to work out who's speaking. And it's sometimes can be very tricky to do that. So I'm going to ask you just to keep your cameras off, just so we can keep the spotlight on the speakers. And what I'll do, I'll turn my cameras off while our guests are presenting as well. If you have any questions or any comments, please do use the chat function, put them in there. And then what I'll do at set points during today's event, I'll pick up the questions and comments in there, especially if it's something that you want panel members to comment on. And when indicated during the Q&A section, please do use the hand signal if you have a question, if you've not already put it in the chat. And I think that should be it for everything. So I'm going to hand over to Yabsera now, and she's going to lead us through an icebreaker.
Hi, everyone. So as Janice mentioned, I'm Yabsera, and I'll be hosting today's icebreaker with my colleague, Sam. So if you could please go to slido.com and enter this code. I will also pop it into the chat. If you give me 2 seconds, I will stop sharing my screen and pop it into the chat for you all. Yeah. I'll give it a few minutes so everyone signs up. So this is going to be an interactive quiz, and it will be testing your knowledge on all things culture and faith. And there are 10 questions, and you have 20 seconds to answer.
So if you've joined Slido and you're in, can I just ask you just to give a thumbs up signal, just so we sort of know?
Yeah, when to start the quiz.
Yeah. Thank you.
I can share my screen and I'll put the code up again. Give me 2 seconds.
Brilliant.
So, yep. I'll give it a minute.
Okay. Can we have another showing of thumbs if you're in Slido?
Okay, let me pull up the Slido screen. Sorry, changing of screens a lot.
That looks like quite a lot of people are in now.
Okay, good. Let me just... Okay, let's start the quiz. So the first question is, what is the name of the Hindu festival of lights? Christmas, Diwali, or Ramadan?
So you put your answers on the Slido.
Yeah. Okay. Diwali is the right answer. Sam?
Yeah, so question 2, which is the holiest book of Judaism? I mean, it's known by a few names, but one of those is correct.
Okay. Oh, some different answers. The answer is Torah.
Yes, I won't try and pronounce it in. There are others, but well done.
What is the term used for the yearly Islamic pilgrimage to Mecca? And the answer is Hajj. Hopefully I pronounced that right. So apologies if I haven't.
Excellent. And next question. What type of bread is typically eaten in Central Southeast Asia, East Africa, and some parts of the Caribbean? I think
And the answer.
in the spirit of learning, we won't sort of judge pronunciation too badly, but yeah, the answer is
Chapati, yeah. Okay. What type of food is ackee, a component of ackee and saltfish, the national dish of Jamaica? It's actually a fruit, which is very surprising. I also thought it was bread at one point, so I learned a lot doing making this quiz. So back to you, Sam.
All right. Question 6. Which Hungarian stew made with meat and onions and eaten by the Magyar shepherds has been traced to the 9th century? Most of you got that one. Yes, goulash.
It's goulash, yep. What faith includes wearing a turban? Yep, it's Sikhism. So majority of us got that right. Sam?
Next up, you shouldn't ask for salt with your meal in which country?
The correct answer is Egypt. They find it very rude if you add salt to their meals because they cooked it to perfection. Kimono is the national dress for which country? Yep, the answer is Japan. And the final question, Sam.
Yes, final question is, what is the only country in the world that has a national flag that is not rectangular? Oh,
And
got people out there.
yeah, it's Nepal. So, yep.
If anyone's equally interested in trivia as I, which probably they aren't, it's called a double pennant is the shape. But it's like two triangles.
Very interesting. Well, unfortunately, you don't win any prizes for participating in the quiz, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand over back to Janice.
All right, thank you very much for that, Debra. That was actually quite interesting. Some of those questions there. Is there anybody who got all of the questions right? Give me a thumbs up if you got all the questions right. Oh, well done. Well done. I was expecting to see any hands there because some of them were really tricky. Well done. You can definitely give yourself a clap for that. All right, wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you now a little bit about the Female Offender Minority Ethnic Working Group. So called FOME. So FOME is the host for this event. So FOME is a relatively new working group. It started up in February last year. So it's been going out now for just over a year. And the main aim of FOME is, as you can see on the slide, just overseeing work streams and taking forward projects to improve outcomes and experience of minority ethnic and foreign national women in the criminal justice system. So FOME looks at different issues and we discuss different issues and we try and see if we can find solutions for them. So it is a quite a, I'm going to say a smallish group for the remit of what we've got going here, but very, very effective. So collectively, FOME wants to take action to address that are needs specific to ethnic minority and foreign national women. These are our target groups and everything that we do is aimed at this group. However, we do recognise that lots of the work that we will do or we lead on FOME will also benefit women more widely, and that's fine. And some of it can even be copied over onto the male or the youth estate as well. And we'd love to see that happen as we go forward. So we're also working towards reducing racial disparities for women. And we know that this has been a major issue for a number of years for ethnic minority men and women in the criminal justice system. So we're going to try and see if we can understand some of the root causes for those disparities and do what we can to remove them or at least improve them. Can I have the next slide, please? So FOME is a very lively and interactive group. So it is a working group for a reason, because all of the members there don't just meet to discuss issues or potential solutions or to talk about government policy, but instead everybody comes with an attitude of rolling their sleeves up and getting involved in the work. And we do this in a number of ways. So before I go into that a little bit, I'll talk about some of who the members are. As you can see there, we're a mixed group. So it's made up of what we would call our external stakeholders in MOJ, and also the policy and operational leads from different teams that have an interest. So some of them are listed here. And today with us at this event, we've got Hibiscus, who are going to be presenting after this, and also the Muslim Women in Prison Project. And both of these organizations are founding members of FOME. So how FOME operates is that we've got a core group of roughly 20 members, including all of these bodies that you can see here. And we also have what we call task and finish groups that focus on specific issues. And those task and finish groups are made up of FOME members and also other people that will join us temporarily, just because they've got an interest in that piece of work and to getting involved in taking that forward. So just to go over to the next slide, please. And I'll tell you a little bit of some of the areas of focus. So right now, FOME has got roughly 7 broad areas of focus. So we're developing, for example, cultural competency training, and we hope that this is for both prison and probation staff that work with women, to try to help them to be a little bit more knowledgeable than they are now. So we're recognizing that everybody doesn't know everything about everybody else. That's just not how the world works. So regardless of what your own background is, you'll find it interesting to know a little bit more about somebody else's background, especially where that's different to yours. So we'll have some cultural competency training that we are developing, and that will be hopefully start rolling out around December. We're also focusing on remand, strengthening family ties. Many of you would be familiar with the Lord Farmer review that looked at strengthening family ties. He did one for the male estate and then the second review for the women's estate. But in the women's estate review, he didn't really focus very much on the needs of ethnic minority and foreign national women. And so we've sort of picked that up, and in line with Farmer's recommendations and his thinking and so on, we're trying to see if we can look at what more needs to be done for this specific cohort of women. We're also looking at the translation and interpretation services. Again, this is an area that causes quite a lot of distress, especially for women for whom English is a second language or who don't speak English at all. And so it's about finding different ways in which we can help to improve that. You can't teach people language, unfortunately, in a very short amount of time. But while they're there, then we try to see what we can do to help. We're also developing some guidance for women in the criminal justice system. And this is guidance that will be focused on the early part, if you like, of people's interaction with criminal justice system. So that is roughly from arrest up to sentencing. And that guidance will explain what happens at each stage, who the practitioners are that women will encounter. And it'll also talk about common terminology that people might hear and what that terminology means. There'll also be a section in that guidance that looks at the needs of foreign national women, because they have a slightly different outcome because of contact criminal justice system than other women would face. And so there's information in there that a foreign national women who might be subject to deportation would need to know. We're also looking at things like data and evidence, what's out there. We're always very interested in FOME to hear about research reports that other people do. And we've had a couple of people come along to meet and sort of present and share their findings of their research that they do as well. We're also doing a piece of work now that looks at data, published data more broadly, and what else is needed to be provided. We're also doing some work as well about building capacity. And this is for strengthening organisations that specialise in providing support for ethnic minority or foreign national people. And we're trying to see if we can help them to access funding for their programs through dynamic framework or other means, and also to help them to understand what the government is doing and to have a voice in participating as well in a more formal way. So those are the main areas that FOME is focusing on. But there's a lot more that FOME does as well. If you have the next slide. So as well as leading on its own areas of work, or its own areas of focus, what FOME also does is get involved in other people's work. So FOME can be a sounding board if you've got a piece of policy that you're working on developing or some operational practice, and you want to check how would this sit with, how would it support ethnic minority women? What more can I do to, so that my work that I'm doing is more helpful or more supportive towards foreign national women, for example? Then you can come and present your work to FOME, and you'll get lots of good advice from the members there. FOME is also very keen to get involved in equality impact assessments. So if you're doing equality impact assessments for your work and you want to sort of test it before you publish it, or in some way you'd like FOME to help you to work through that, then of course just let me know again, and we'll try and do our best to accommodate you. FOME also gets involved in different pieces of work that happen across MOJ and HMPPS. So just for example, very recently, some members of FOME went to attend a challenge panel for our Prison Leavers project. So if you need a FOME member to come and help somebody who can talk about ethnic minority women, the perspective of ethnic minority women, then again, FOME members will be quite happy to help. And last but not least, this is not an exhaustive list at all. FOME can help to bring the perspective of women from diverse ethnic groups. So if you're doing something and you'd want that lived experience viewpoint in there, then FOME would be a good place to start. Many of the FOME members have networks within their organizations that they can usually tap into to provide an additional source of support for you. So if there's anything that FOME can do for you, please, I welcome everyone just to get involved and to get in touch and to let us know. So the FOME chair, which I didn't mention before, is Sheena Clark. And unfortunately, she's not able to make today's event. She did want to come, but she's not able to make it. Myself, Sarah, and another colleague who I know is here called Georgia, we also provide the secretariat support and also help the members as much as we can. So please do get in touch. What we can do, we can put I'll put my email address at least on in the chat. So if you want to get in touch with me directly, then I'll sort of route your query according to what it is, to the best person. And that is all about FOME. I don't know if anybody's got any questions. I don't want to take too much time on this section because I really want to hear from our speakers. If anybody's got any questions, then please put them in the chat or raise your hands. Okay. I don't see any questions, so I'm very happy to go on. So I'd like to introduce you now to the first of our speakers today. And this is Garda from Hibiscus Initiatives, and she's going to introduce her colleagues and then take you through some of the good practice examples of the wonderful, wonderful and very interesting work that Hibiscus Initiatives is taking. So Garda, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Janice. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm Garda Nassery. I'm the head of policy and public affairs at Hibiscus. And Julian is the anti-trafficking project officer, will join me with my presentation. And we have Ebony, who is a woman with lived experience, will join us to tell a few words about her experience in the criminal justice system. I will tell you more about Hibiscus if you don't know it. So we will just give you an idea about Hibiscus. And the next slide, please. Great. So Hibiscus is a UK leading organization enabling marginalized migrant women who are trapped in the immigration and the criminal justice system to rebuild their life. So we deliver holistic, trauma-informed, and gender-responsive intervention services across prisons, international resettlement, community resettlement, and anti-trafficking. As you see from the numbers that we did from last year, we actually supported 843 people. That was like they were in the community and they were in the immigration removal centers as well as in prisons. So we work in 3 prisons, 5 detention centers, and we have a women's center in London. We are based in Holloway area, and then our women's center is in the same building. So we provide practical and well-being support and as well as empowerment development. I will tell you more about the project that we've been doing recently, which is the double disadvantage, and we actually developed an action plan. These are the quotes from the women that were involved in the developing of the action plan with us, but I would just give you maybe kind of a background why we did it and how we did it. Like Black migrant women face double disadvantage of gender equality and racism when they encounter the criminal justice system. That stops them from getting support they need within the system. So when they try to build their life outside and leaving them at risk of reoffending. Too many marginalized women are constantly overlooked because of their race, gender, and faith. So in my presentation, I will be focusing on the race and gender, and my colleague Huda, she will be focusing on the race and faith. So Huda, like my work colleague Huda, she is from Muslim women in prison. So we partnered with them as well as with the Zayed Mubarak Trust, Agenda, Criminal Justice Alliance, as well as Women in Prison. And we worked and developed an action plan, as well as, and as I said, with the women with lived experience. And we developed a 10-point action plan that designed to tackle the inequalities experienced by Black migrant women in the criminal justice. And we launched the action plan on the 31st of January. The aim for it is to improve the outcome, reduce these inequalities and discrimination against these women. And as well as the action plan offers practical steps for meaningful change by working in partnership along with the women with lived experience in the criminal justice. So these are some of the quotes. I will just leave it maybe a minute with you just for you to read it. And I would like now to invite Ebony, which is a woman with lived experience, to say a few words about her experience. Ebony, are you there in? Or maybe there was some kind of connection problem. Okay, seems to be she is not with us today. Maybe she will be joining us later. We can hear from her later on when we have our panel discussion. Oh, she's just here. I can see her. I'm just admitting her. Hi, Ebony.
Hi, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. So thank you so much for joining us. And I'm just gonna, sorry you just joined, but I'm just gonna hand it over to you to say a few words. And everyone has been looking to hear from you.
Oh, sorry, I was a bit carried away with some work.
No problem, no problem. We totally.
Yeah. My name is Ebony, and I'm a lady and a woman of a Black descent from Nigeria. I'll just I prepare myself to speak about the Black woman in an immigration insecure immigration issue at the moment. So I just say that as a Black woman who is Black Nigeria descendant and a mother, insecure immigration, and this has been my experience as a mother of 2 young kids. During my probation service on paid work, I was allocated, to have payback hours to the community, and this what I found that as a mother, it was not considered the time allocated for me to go and work. My timing, childcare was not put into consideration, which I found it so struggle to care for my children and also to do my payback hours. So I was thinking if this can be looked into to put mothers into consideration when they're in justice, like when they're in prison or in community paying back any hours. And also it would be great if mothers and women can be treated differently when they are going through these justice periods. That's just what I want to say. Yeah, just to consider as mothers as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ebony, and we really appreciate that you are here with us and being very honest and, sharing all these, your lived experience and being, sharing it with everyone. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now I'm going to hand it over to my work colleague, Julian, which I can see that she just joined, and to tell us more about. So I'm going to share the action plan in the chat, and one of the actions that we ask for is action 1, and we're just going to show you how can be implemented and how we do it at Hibiscus.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julianne Ntege, Policy and Public Affairs team member at Hibiscus. So the Double Disadvantage Action Plan, the first point of it, and they were created in order of importance, is to the need for training in probation services, in HMPs, in prisons, in all of the criminal justice system, to have training which is specifically around the experiences of Black and minoritized women in the criminal justice system and in cultural mediation. And about 6 months ago, Hibiscus created this training. And this training is something that I deliver with my team members in the policy team to organizations that want to gain skills in specifically how to support in a very practical way women who have the experience of the criminal justice system and the intersection of an insecure immigration system, of navigating the insecure immigration system and being a woman. And this training really works to focus on the tools and the skills that we already have in the sector and how we can improve through cultural sensitivity, through training, through further reading, through acknowledging the injustices, the systematic injustices of the Home Office and the criminal justice system. So this is something that we've already began training in organizations such as Women in Prison and Women at the Well and other small women's organizations that work directly in a frontline way. And the training is a workshop, and this means it's interactive. We ask the challenging questions, we look at case studies. All of the expertise that Hibiscus has in this training comes directly from the frontline work that we do. It's informed by the day-to-day work of being in detention centers, of working in the prisons and working in the communities. So if you're interested in any way in this training, please drop your email in the chat or contact FOME, and they'll forward you the information of myself and Garda, and we can send you a brief outline of what this training entails. I really do think as professionals it is our responsibility, although in many instances it's not our lived experience, we do have the responsibility of learning, of being humble, and of challenging ourselves in this way so that we can provide the best service for minoritized women in the criminal justice system with insecure immigration status. I'm going to hand back to Garda now.
Thank you so much, Julian. Yes, and as Julian said, please get in touch with herself or with me. We're gonna add our emails if you're interested into knowing more about the training, and we will be very happy to provide you with any information. And next slide, please. Great. So like at Hibiscus, we actually started to develop kind of internal policy and guides on how to work with people with lived experience, just because of the nature that we do, especially of like at the policy team, that we work with the women. We try to really do it very organically. We meet with them. We have bi-weekly meetings, and they will come, and then we discuss the issues, and then we highlight it on what areas that we would like to work on in terms of, if they will wanted to have, like if it's related to poverty, it is related to not access to public fund, or it is related to gender, race, any issues, and then we would work with them and to develop either a publication or an article, or contact a journalist to kind of work with them. But before that, because we have staff, like we work with them, and we wanted to develop this guide, but before that we wanted to identify who we mean by the people with lived experience. And for just giving the nature of the work that we do, we work with the people that are being kind of in contact with the criminal justice system as well as the immigration system. So we have different clients that we support. So we kind of have these two groups or two areas of work that the client will probably approach us and ask us for support and help. So then we would definitely value their skills and knowledge, and use their knowledge into and acknowledge them as an expert with their lived experience. The next slide, please. And these are some kind of why we do that. I think that's what we do because we think that definitely it will be we will be supporting the clients better. We will deliver our services. We will deliver more tailored services. We will meet their needs. As well as a best practice, we will involve their voices and create a platform for there to share their experiences. So, for example, one of the good practices that we do, we have an intern that run these sessions, and we have a group called Intersectional Feminism Group, and the woman will come, and the intern is a woman with lived experience who run these groups, who they decide what areas of work they want to work on, and we just facilitate and help them to achieve that. Next slide, please. So these are some of the benefits that may be involving. So there are, like we would think that involve people with lived experience in an activity or event or training is definitely we have to make sure that the person who is with lived experience have benefit, as well as our staff, our volunteers, and the organization. And how we do that, by make sure that their experience, they actually learn something, we develop some of their skills, and we consider them as a subject matter experts. We work with them as peer mentors as well. So some of the women that we work with, all of the stories, like the case studies, the stories that we use in our training come from the women and their experiences. And we have a plan for them to actually be a co-facilitators in the training, and then they can do all of the work around case studies when we have the kind of the subgroups, and they can kind of lead on this work. And as well as we develop their confidence, their skills, their language, everything. And from the staff is for them to actually have an insight on these experiences of the people with lived experience, as well as have more a diverse and inclusive learning and developing opportunities. For the organization as in total is actually to increase raising awareness on this issue, reshaping our services, and as well, like just to make sure reaffirm to the public the importance of the people with lived experience, and demonstrate how they are committed to our services and how we are reflecting on their feedback on our services. I have maybe just a few things to say, is more of just guiding principles. If you are going to be working with the people with lived experience, please make sure to safeguard the needs of them, and do no harm. Share the power and be inclusive by considering addressing the barriers they have. Use multiple and creative methods to involve them. Clarify the purpose of your work and who will be involved, what benefits, as well as what level of influence. Develop a two-way reciprocal relationship and ensure people with lived experience can have influence in your process. Facilitate rather than deliver, and train and build a capacity of the people. Ensure capacity for influence and change for individuals to influence the decision making. Plan well so that participation is meaningful. make sure people with lived experience influence decision making. So I leave you with these kind of guiding principles, and we will be very happy to share our like kind of this internal policy that we have for people to and I'm happy to definitely receive any question and answer any questions after our presentation or later in when we finish our presentation today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So just before I invite Hannah to come and share her story, are there any questions that anybody has for Hibiscus? I think I've got one question. If I might be naughty, I know it's not for me to be asking questions, but the advice that you just gave at the very end, those pearls of wisdom, I think that was really, really helpful. So I know for myself, I wouldn't mind to receive that in writing, just so I can share it with anybody else who might have heard and actually want to take those principles on board. So that would be really, really welcome.
Thank you so much. Yes, we will definitely be very happy to share it.
Okay, and I can see that Francesca's also hoping to say that it was really, really good advice, I think, really helpful, right on the nose, as they say. So thank you for that. So are there any other questions from anybody? If you could just sort of use that hand signal. So Eleanor wants any information, if we can forward that, we'll definitely do that, Eleanor. That's not a problem at all. So whatever I receive, I'll send to the participants. Luckily, I got a list of everybody's email addresses and so on, so should be able to do that quite easily. Okay, sorry, Ebony.
I just want to ask about the training. Is it just meant for your voluntary staff only, or can any opportunity comes to, like people like us to have some training from you guys?
Vivian, do you want to answer?
Yes, is the short answer, Ebony. It is the hope, and that's something definitely that we can plan, where we have women who are supported by Hibiscus can also join in the training and the learning that's provided either externally or internally, where it's feasible and where it's possible. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Let me know when it's available. I'll
Definitely.
like to training.
I will do.
Oh, that is wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much, Hibiscus. So we're going to go to Hannah now. Is Hannah here to share her story?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. So, do you want to leave your camera off? That it's okay if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I was actually in two minds. I was going to turn it on, but I'd like to leave it off if that's okay.
That's fine. Well, whatever makes you comfortable, we're happy with that.
If by the end of it I sort of do turn it off, then I do. But at the moment, as it stands, I'd like to leave it off, please.
All right, then that's fine.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Yeah, so my name's Hannah. I am using another name to protect myself, but you can refer to me as Hannah. I've been with the Muslim Women in Prison Project for about 4 years. I met them through, it was at the time of custody, at the time of my first offence. I'd never been in trouble with the law before that or prior to that. There were certain things about me and my situation that made me different from some of the women in there, particularly because I didn't understand the system, and it was an important part of my identity and my journey. So I am a Pakistani Muslim, so the idea of a young unmarried woman from my community going to prison is very socially stigmatized in the community. It pointed to the fact that maybe my parents hadn't brought me up in the correct manner, or it was their fault, even though that simply wasn't the case. In fact, it was far from it. I had, alhamdulillah, the most you know, flexible upbringing. We come from a line of strongly opinionated women. You know, it's really disheartening to see that there's so much discrimination out there, and this is why we're here to speak, and you know, we are going to be the voices of that. So what made my situation was worse was the fact that I was living with my mum, who's a single parent, and she had and she still has mental health issues, and I was a carer for her at that time. I was a sole carer. Although my brother was at home, he had other commitments. So yeah, at the time, my main fear was the shame and the dishonour attached to the fact that I was going to go to prison. My mind knew, but my heart didn't want to accept it, kind of thing. I mean, I didn't even tell my mum that I'd been arrested, just because I didn't want to have to worry her or anything. And just because of the extended community. It's like everything that was happening around me, it was just really surreal. I couldn't talk to anybody about it because I feel like if I did tell anyone, you know, there was that level of trust. How well did I trust them? And I had a lot of paranoia at the time as well. That, you know, they could potentially go and tell somebody else. There was a risk to the family, that my name would be blackened as well as my personal name. There was fears of who's going to want to marry me after that, because the community is too closely connected. And I just hoped for the best, but I was expecting the worst, just because of everything that I heard. But yeah, I can wholeheartedly speak about this because that person is me. And not so long ago there was, you know, I was speaking to somebody, and I'm just being mindful of the time, so I won't really go into depth about it. But it was reaching the stage of marriage, and what had happened was they'd spoke to the neighbours, and the neighbours had mentioned, hang on a minute, that's such and such person, and she's been to jail. And what shocked me the most, and it was quite upsetting, was the fact that they didn't even want an explanation as to what the circumstances were or what the context was. They just simply eliminated the idea of marriage out of the equation. It was like one step forward and two steps back. And they don't even appreciate the fact that myself personally, I've made so many improvements to better myself. I'm constantly I'm attempting to better myself every single day, but that's completely disregarded when there's people, you know, judging you, and they will always judge you. And I can say this because I've experienced it firsthand, and not even long ago. This was 2 weeks ago, and it's still a recurring cycle. And maybe it's due to the fact that, you know, my article is there and my name's published and my name's absolutely tarnished. And sorry, this is something that I'd like to give you a bit of feedback. If I was to give you feedback, it's, you know, because GDPR came out in 2018, where people's identities are supposed to be protected, and that is a protection legislation. And I feel like that if that governs the way we can use and process and store personal data, then, you know, people's articles, especially for South Asian women or people in general who don't want, you know, their name published everywhere. And I did actually go through a legal representative for it to be taken down, but apparently due to public interest, it was still there, and it can't ever come down. And I'm really upset because it just takes that one person to be sat with somebody else and then pulling an article up, and it's frightening. How am I supposed to live my life treading on eggshells? It's not a quality of life, to be honest. It's just, sorry, I just feel very passionate about it because I'm not the first person, and I certainly won't be the last. So I feel like we need to speak about this, and it's ongoing. And my case was very complicated, because I was subject to coercive control, but none of that was mentioned. It was literally just my name, my address. So that's another safeguarding. It's a safeguarding issue, because, you know, what if somebody says, oh, you shouldn't have done this, and you shouldn't be living your life, and you're Muslim and you shouldn't be doing that. That's a safeguarding issue. What if somebody comes to my house? You know, neighbours have already spoke 2 weeks ago. It's shocking. And I just hope we can be the change. But yeah, I met the Muslim Women in Project while I was in prison. And I met Sophia Bunsey, and huge credit to her, because I was actually shocked to see somebody from an Asian background, and she's tailored the project specifically to support women from our background.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was actually the Muslim chaplain that asked the project to speak with me, and that's when I realised that they're actually really close to my community as well. The community centre is close to where I live. They've written ample reports on experiences of Muslim women coming through the CJS, and they've given me copies of them to read, and they've actually given me copies of them to read while I was in custody. So I'm still self-educating myself while I'm in there, which I found that really resonated with me, because usually it's just like, yeah, this is what you've done, and that's it. We're to not speak to you, and just do your own thing, and you've made your bed, lie in it, kind of thing. But I really appreciated that, because I was self-educating myself, like how you women have mentioned, like the Lammy reports and stuff. I was actually given copies to sort of to educate myself on around ongoing issues, and how there are cultural differences and discrimination actively through the communities. But I was genuinely struck by how similar these women's journeys were to mine. Their reports they've spoke about women, Muslim women in particular, and how they might suffer from a heightened sense of shame and dishonour, and the need for family mediation, support, and returning back to the community, which which has come, and that's sort of related to the historic trauma as well. And this project has taken into consideration our gender disadvantages, community, our culture, and our faith. So they've taken all that into consideration and made it specifically tailored to our needs. They were working with great sensitivity and consideration with women from our communities, and that made me feel a lot better, because this was unspoken, and I've never really understood it. And I've never really had the confidence or the mental health to explain my story, and it's only up until now. I mean, even though this has happened 2 weeks ago, it's not. If anything, it's made me more passionate about wanting to speak about it, because there genuinely does need to be a change. So when I started working with MWIP, one of the first things that they did was reassure me, and I think that's what women need when they're in a situation like that. They just need to hear the right things, to be made to feel like it's okay, calm down, just take one step at a time, and you will be okay. So that was almost like a sense of relief to me, because I knew there was somebody there that I could openly offload to and cry to, and just made to feel okay. And that's what everybody needs, not even just in custody more so, but in general anyway. I hope we've all got people that we can offload to, because it's crucial, and it's so important. But it's often overlooked, and people don't understand that these grassroots communities are what make the communities. These organizations that all you women are here today, these are what we need. So yeah, I told my concerns to my mum. She spoke a little bit of English, but not a lot. But she certainly didn't understand the system. So yeah, MWIP, Sophia Bunsey, all of the staff there, Huda, Rahenna, can't thank them enough. And Sophia actually visited my mum while I was in custody, checking in on her regularly while she was socially isolated. And especially when COVID kicked in, they provided her with food packages and like hot meals and things. And yeah, it was lovely to because in there, all you need to, like, for me personally, I just wanted to know my family was okay, and the fact that they were looking after my mum, honestly, it just, yeah, I couldn't thank them enough. But the project has helped me in so many ways, made me understand the system. They're able to explain to me what my rights are, what my work with probation is, anything that I've ever needed, any sort of clarity that I've ever needed, I've always gained through them. I'll give you some examples as well, some of the types of things that they have supported me with. So like personal development and confidence building opportunities. We've done archery, we've been to army camp where we were with actual army people, and that's something that I've always wanted to do, even if it was just the one time in my whole life. Yeah, it was amazing. We've had volunteering opportunities at Christmas, Eid. They helped me find a job and disclose my offence. And alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful. Praise be to Allah that I get to work from home, but I'm still able to care for my mum at the same time. So there's that level of flexibility that I'm so grateful for, alhamdulillah. And I think mostly I'm mostly happy about that. Recently we spoke to the West Yorkshire Mayor and the Police and Crime Commissioner about my journey and how there needs to be better services for Black and brown women in the community, so we can get that help safely in a more sensitive manner. Though I feel like, you know, some of the women's stories are very sensitive, and it does need to have a certain approach to the way we go about it. But yeah, just every day I feel like I'm getting stronger, just thanks to the opportunities that MWIP have given me. I feel like I can give back and support other women that are facing this. This Ramadan we helped organise a community fast opening for prison leaver women in the community. I wouldn't even have imagined it, but yeah, it can be so lonely, and it was just a safe space sort of for me to go to. The project really works really hard to fight our corner and educate the community and shield us from anything negative, because in a world where there's so much more equality, diversity and inclusion, there's just as much discrimination there is, and it's very real and it's happening. And yeah, they do the same in the CJS as well. They run training programs to really educate on about other organisations and make them reflect on their work and practice. Yeah, if the project team like Sophia, Hudra and Henna weren't so brave and caring, going above and beyond their roles, there's no way I could possibly speak this confidently. So I'd just like to thank them for making us feel safe and allowing us to tell our stories. And just, yeah, thank you for the opportunity, for letting me speak. Sorry, just last thing, it was the feedback as well for the GDPR. So it's the publishing of articles. I know they say it's in public interest, but I feel like that's very that's to me personally, a safeguarding issue, and something needs to be done about that. That's probably my feedback if I was to give feedback. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to MWIP. Thank you for having me. And have you any questions, or did?
Thank you so much, Hannah, for sharing your story. You know, there are times when you were speaking, I just wanted to cry, you know, of how incredibly difficult your journey has been. And the fact that you've come all the way through to the other side, and now you're able to sort of build on your life again, you know, and still provide support for your mother as well. That is really, really wonderful. So I genuinely wish you all the best. And you can see, I don't know if you can see the chat, there's lots of comments that are coming in with people are sort of really congratulating you, you know, for being so brave and for going through it. And I think it's always really helpful to receive insight from women like yourself who know what it's like from the inside, you know, and can actually explain what support that it is that you need, what's made a difference for you, and how that, you know, has helped you to reshape and reform your pathway in life. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate you coming today. And also for Ebony as well, you know, I know it's not very easy to stand up and sort of talk about your personal experiences like that. So I want to really, really say, you know, more power to you both, you know, and wish you all the well. And thank you so much for coming along today and for sharing with us. So please do stay. We've got the panel discussion and we've invited you both to join the panel as well, so people can put any specific questions that they have to both of you. I'm just going to ask everybody when we get to the panel discussion to sort of just be very mindful that this is traumatizing, and it can be very difficult to talk about personal stuff. Just sort of be mindful as you shape and frame your questions that you want to ask. So thank you very much for that. So we're going to go now to our next presentation, or the last presentation actually, for today, and that's from the Muslim Women in Prison Project. So I'm going to invite Hada to come forward now and to introduce her team and to give her presentation. So over to you, Hoda.
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me?
We can, yes.
Brilliant. My name is Hoda. I work alongside Sophia Bunsey. I think you've missed out our introductory slide. However, it was only just to
Oh, I'm
introduce
sorry.
our provision. It's the Muslim Women in Prison project, and specifically today I'll be talking about the cultural competency and the desistance model of recovery, and how exactly Hannah had shaped it was absolutely insightful and reflective. So, you know, she's given us a good introduction there. So I don't know if I can compare, but hopefully this session will give you a bit of an insight into our work and how exactly we go about specifically in terms of cultural competency, and how our provision has been tailored and specifically made to the cultural and faith aspects of women who are entering the CGS. So the Muslim Women in Prison project, just a few pointers about our background. We are a grassroots specialist working within the CGS, but we also work and actually operate from the communities in which these women are released into. We actually work on the rule of visibility, so we put ourselves in the forefront of where the women are released, and we take ownership for our sort of cultural needs and our own faith needs. We believe that it's a cultural identity that we carry, which is a collective identity, so we believe that we should take ownership and sort of lead by example. We have a rule of acceptancy, so there is no bias, no judgment. We tailor the support, so it's a faith-based counselling and mediation. So we use family to family support. As you can see in the picture there, we did host the Royals, which made it to the paper, and there's some of our ladies there who also got to meet the Royals, which is something quite exceptional for women who have entered the CGS to be able to be given that opportunity and be sort of recognised on that level. What we work as from the community centre itself is we use peer mentoring as well as in the context of the community. So where problems arise, we are normally in the forefront, and because we believe that before other services or before anybody, we should be the ones to take that kind of ownership and lead on these issues. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as you can see there, I think Hannah did mention them, but I think we're on our fourth publication now. But these are our three previous ones, which are basically, you can find them online. If you do need any sort of specific, or if you want them sent to you, I can probably provide you with them online or through email. Basically, we raise awareness through these publications and are nationally publicated so that we're able to, because there were no published articles or even sort of publications about Muslim women and the problems that they're facing when entering the CGS. And a few researchers from universities who were covering this topic actually approached us saying that they have no material to be able to sort of conduct their studies or even explore the topic. So we were the first nationally recognised organisation to be able to publish and research in this context. So we have raised awareness within communities, but also on a national basis. We've been given the Princess Anne Award and also the Best Practice Award by David Lammy himself. Also the CGS, and we look at basically policy impact and how we're able to sort of identify the reasons behind offending, but on an appropriate cultural and faith needs of the women, and making sure that we're able to sort of sensitively unpick and uncover the deep-rooted issues that these women are facing. So most of these women have obviously had issues and barriers to disclosure. Disclosure is normally the barrier that they face at the time of, before even reaching the actual prison. They actually have issues with disclosure way before, so that is normally at the time of arrest. That could actually mitigate and cause them to not actually be disproportionately, as we know from statistics, disproportionately sort of sentenced. So these are obviously to raise awareness and to ensure that these sort of arbitrary arrests or these kind of arrests are not made where women would normally be given community orders rather than custodial sentences. So it's more of a cultural and faith sort of awareness there. The next slide, please. So the debate that we're normally sort of facing at the moment, or well, actually for a long time, we've been around for about 9 years now. So it's an ongoing debate of how cultural competency should be practiced and applied. And you know, this sort of session is very befitting. Our objectives have always been to raise awareness. Our position is to obviously include the lived experience and their views, and how we are able to sort of unpick feminism versus the the Islamic version of feminism. We believe that women are able to work, women should be entitled to be able to speak. You know, a lot of these sort of unconscious bias that are made against Muslim women are obviously the reasons for why they are facing the barriers and the problems that they're facing with misunderstanding the culture, or misunderstanding their home lives or their community lives. We understand that these ladies face a sentence inside, but then are faced with another sentence when they are released, as Hannah highlighted. So it's always that cultural competency sort of theme that has sort of been a very, very sort of sensitive topic for us, and it's something that we're very passionate about and have published a lot about. So if we unpick that on the next slide, goes into more about cultural competency. Can we just click onto the next slide? Thank you. So a more of a focused sort of approach in understanding the everyday realities of Muslim women and the impact that they are faced with when it comes to sort of taking into consideration the norms and the practices and the behaviours of common practice or a common belief in these sort of South Asian communities, is that prisons are made for men and that women do not enter prison. And if you have entered prison as a woman, you have dishamed and dishonoured your family. You are to be filled with guilt and regret. And a lot of these women obviously are faced with sort of being disowned and having to sort of relocate and resettle, which is another sentence for them when they exit the CGS. So we normally work with the families and the wider community just to sort of reinforce these sort of behind the doors, these sort of historical traumas and things that these women go through from a cultural aspect normally happen behind closed doors, and so they're never really sort of brought to the forefront, and we as an organisation find it to be our kind of duty to bring these, that our women normally do face domestic violence, are normally fleeing their homes, are normally forced marriage. You know, these are all cultural sort of deep-rooted issues that these women face way before time of arrest that do need to be disclosed. So understanding the additional inequalities. So we have the gender-based inequalities, as I said previously. Prisons are made for men, not for women. You should be at home in the kitchen cooking. These gender roles and norms that they have been conditioned to all their lives, which make it a lot harder for them. So they don't have life skills when they've exited the CGS. On the other side, they've got very low levels of literacy. They're not able to know about their rights. They're not understanding how to navigate the communities. So this is the reason why we are actually operating within the communities, because we believe that they are there, and if we're not within their proximity, they will never approach us. And how we are doing this is obviously by publishing, but also by being mindful and not making any assumptions, so no judgment. You know, a lot of women who have exited the CGS do have kids. They are mothers, they are carers, as we've heard, and these are normally not criminal women with no past offences. It's the wrong place and the wrong time. Some are groomed, some are coerced, as we've heard. So, you know, these are mitigating factors to them being able to disclose, and then later on not having to experience even prison, but are able to get, you know, community orders rather than being completely sort of receiving, you know, custodial sentences. Now, if we're going to a bit of the next slide would show you some of our, this is actually our service leaflet, which shows some of our services that we do provide. So a befriending service, as you can see on there, I won't go into too much detail, I'll leave it for you guys to read, but that is something also that I can provide you guys with. It's a befriending service, very culturally aware. We have practices where we are able to involve the local mosques, the local sort of imams, to be able to sort of mediate with families in a neutral settings. These are services that we feel that other organisations organisations don't provide, because it's a very, very sort of neutral environment, a safe place for them to be able to disclose. We are a crime reporting centre, as well as we have a resettlement hub within the community centre, which is solely for these ladies, and there doesn't need to be a reason for them to come in. And the reason why we actually operate within the community is to provide a kind of shield. A lot of our ladies are not able to leave their homes as easily or with the freedom that other ladies can, and they don't know how to use public transport. So for them to come to, for instance, probation in city courts in town is obviously uncovering their identity. So how we've done it is that we work within a community centre, and within that community centre we have a resettlement hub where the ladies can go there. I mean, all members of the community do use it. It's a sports hall, there's events, there's all sorts of provisions. Primary school uses the halls as well. We have football outside, so it looks like a normal community centre. It doesn't leak out, or nobody's able to see, oh, so-and-so's daughter's gone to this place, and the taxi driver dropped her off, and it's a place for women who have been to prison. We have shrouded our identity and sort of gone by that to protect the identities of our ladies and ensure that we're not sort of uncovering them. And as Hannah spoke about GDPR, that is something that we're very sensitive about. We ensure that these ladies are not uncovered when they come to us. So now we have women that have visited us for over 6 years, and they're safe to do that, because we've created an environment that is safe for them to exit and enter at any time. So the next slide, please. The next slide goes into a bit more context into the cultural understanding of what I've spoken about. I've probably touched upon these. So the relocation resettlement, I did touch upon that. That is normally a second sentence upon them when they are released. It's finding them homes, it's finding them places where they're able to sort of live safe, teaching them the life skills that they need, teaching them about a community that they probably lived in all their lives but never really knew, apart from their school that they once attended, and that's about it. And local corner shop, they've never really used public transport or anything like that. The patriarchy now, it is quite a common misconception where we have this sort of debate between faith and culture. Faith does not support this. However, the culture has sort of enriched this idea of patriarchy and that male dominance over these women, and this is why we always have noticed as a recurring theme that there is normally a male's hand to do with the offending of women, Muslim women in particular. There is normally a male hand, so these women are normally coerced, or women are normally coerced or sort of groomed into the offences. As I previously mentioned, they are not criminal women. They do not have previous history of offending. So you can see the influence that the male and the gender roles that are sort of being sort of conditioned to, and the influence that it has on them. The lack of agency, we've tried to tackle this through creating the whole community hub, where women are able to not only come in and sort of disclose their issues, but to have a recreational side to this, a therapeutic and a side to it, where we have a knitter and natter, coffee mornings, we have a sports hall, we have archery there, we have jiu-jitsu going on there, we have artwork, so we have an artist who comes in and sort of paints with ladies. We do a lot of activities that also means that the women are learning life skills and able to sort of build their confidence. The shame and dishonour is always going to be a sort of a cultural a factor that plays in there, but as much as we've been sort of trying to destigmatise the idea of Muslim women and South Asian women going into prison, with our lived experiences, you can see, giving them the voice and the sort of voice and influence side of things to be able to co-deliver and also to co-produce their own experiences. We have some ladies now who are under probation, who are now probation officers themselves. We also have, for instance, Hannah, who was once in the CGS and was able to get a job and disclose. So it's able to sort of destigmatise the idea of these ladies going into prison. The misogyny is something that is also sort of deep entrenched, and the clashing, as I've mentioned, the clashing culture and faith dynamics. So there's always that debate between faith and culture. Islam does not support support any kind of misogyny or patriarchy. However, it does put women on a pedestal high, and also does give them rights. A lot of these women have not been educated about their rights as Muslim women because they were conditioned to sort of being subservient at home. So to educate them and tell them that their right is to work, and in Islam it's also mentioned you don't have to share your wage as a woman, it's all for yourself. So once they do realise this, it does empower them to then sort of overcome these cultural clashes that they've had and be able to sort of lead a better life for themselves. So the staff and training side of things, we do offer staff and training in the context of cultural competence training. Unconscious bias is another thing that we are very strong about. It's obviously something that has been developed by a lot of agencies at the moment. And in terms of liaison and diversion, to ensure that these ladies are able to sort of live competent lives and be able to sort of carry on with their lives, whether they've been disowned or to be given their full rights as a singular identity, because women have been told that they're part of a collective identity where they can't exist on their own, they're nothing without their families. So these preconceptions, we've always kind of been able to educate that they're just kind of unconscious biases that we automatically make and assume when it comes to South Asian women and Muslim women in particular. Understanding that Muslim women follow the same faith, but they don't all have the same nationality or ethnicity or culture. So myself, I am Muslim also, but I am not from a South Asian background. I'm from an African background. And Hannah spoke, and she is a Muslim woman also. We share the same faith, but she is from a South Asian. So it's understanding the backgrounds of these women normally does influence their home lives and their leading up to their offences, and why you know, these themes I'm sure you've heard of, you know, honour killings and certain offences that are related to culture and not to faith is a very big sort of dissection that we try to make. Institutional and systematic inequalities. Obviously, we've heard of in the David Lammy review that South Asian women and minoritized women in particular are particularly sort of disproportionately sort of arrested or sentenced, and so it's maybe educating and training at the back of this would help to sort of decrease, or to also help these women to disclose their matters that have led up to their offence. Knowing where the specialist services are located, and this is particularly why we operate within the community that we are serving. We are reachable, we're within their actual proximity. We have 2 centres, and we have a resettlement hub within that centre so that they are safe. We've also lectured at the universities, we've published in order to raise this awareness. So, you know, training, recently we've also made movies and clips with our lived experience, and we're actually training probation service. I think it was over 250 officers on this specific cultural competence training. So we are happy to provide that to any sort of organisation or sort of service. And yeah, any questions I'm happy to take. Thank you very much, guys. Sorry.
Thank you, Hada. That was really, really interesting. So we've got a question from Francesca.
Hello, I've really enjoyed today. Thank you very much. My question is if you're aware of any, I don't think you work in the London area. I work for London Probation. I was wondering if you were aware of any organisations that run a similar service in London, or if you do work in London, please let me know.
We actually operate in Yorkshire. However, we've nationally sort of published. We've actually, I think we're coming down to London soon. We've been up to Birmingham. We are quite nationally based. However, we do have partners such as the Together Women Project. So I work as part of Muslim Women and Together Women, part of the MOJ. So I work on HMPPS, which includes Her Majesty's Prisons and Probation. So I think for us guys, our partners also is that Zahid Mubarak, Hibiscus and yourselves, we work in a way where if we're sharing information, we can obviously be able to sort of meet that task and that demand. So we don't mind sort of sharing our knowledge. We don't know if there are any other organisations that run, and this is why I probably haven't highlighted that there are other no other organisations that run in terms of specifically tailoring their service to Muslim women in prison. I think we are the only ones, but we're happy to share that nationwide. I mean, I can send you our reports and we can obviously connect, but we do travel up and down, so we're happy to do that.
That would be great. I attended a Clinks event in November, and I think it was shared that there may be a bit of a gap for local communities within the London area, and it's definitely on my list to try and find out about more, but I'd be very interested in hearing more. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely we can connect on that, definitely.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, I don't see any other hands. So so let's move forward then to the last section on our event today. And thank you very much, Huda, for that. That was really, really interesting. I did have a question for you, but I'm very conscious that we've only got a little over half an hour left, and I want to make sure that our participants have an opportunity to ask questions. So I'll leave mine for now, and then possibly ask it at the end if there's time to do that. So we're going to go now into a panel discussion. So I'm going to ask the panel members, apart from our ladies of lived experience, if you don't mind, just to sort of go forward and put yourself up so people can sort of see who you are, if that's all right. Just so we can sort of spot you. So my camera's on, but I'm not on the panel. Thank you. All right, thank you. All right, so our panel members are everybody, you've heard from them already. So we've got Radha, Julianne, Huda, and of course Ebony, and also Hannah as well are on the panel. So when you ask your questions, you can sort of say who your question is directed to if you want to, or just ask a general question. What I'm going to ask is, we're going to start off by asking one question to everybody. But while they give their answer, if you want to put your questions in the chat, it makes it a little bit easier, I think, to manage. And just in case I miss your hand signal going up. So please do, while we're answering this question, put any questions that you might have in the chat, and then we'll pick those up as we go along. So the first question I want to ask our panel members are, what, in your view, are the common challenges faced by women from diverse ethnic communities, and how can these be overcome? So now we've had a few of them mentioned already, but what do you think are the common challenges faced by women from minority ethnic groups, and how can these be overcome? So I don't know who wants to start off with that. Okay. Do you, oh, sorry, how are you going to start?
Yes, I don't mind. I'll take the floor then. I think because the needs of our ladies may differ to other ladies, so I feel like as an advocate, it's obviously upon me to represent that. I think the key reoccurring sort of challenges that our women face is mainly at the start. Let me start from the really sort of the get-go. When it comes to arrest, is normally the failure to disclose, the barriers to disclosure, normally the misunderstanding of their home lives, I think, is the first barrier that they do face way before they reach court and way before they reach prison. It's more so the cultural sort of understanding of why they live certain lives and what would lead up to their offence, and what signs or what kind of indications lead to these women. Some of these women actually feel that had they disclosed, that their sort of outcome would be a lot more different. So I do feel like that is normally the reason behind that is normally the dishonour, the shame, the guilt that they're sort of conditioned to, which normally does cause them to sort of think, well, I deserve this. This is kind of my end. So really, I do feel like maybe a way to overcome these challenges or these barriers that they're facing, mainly to disclosures, to create these safe spaces, to create these sort of community initiatives where they are able to see people that look like them. I mean, as Hannah mentioned, she was quite surprised to see Sophia, a brown lady who looked like her in representation, to be able to then sort of disclose and you know, cry a shoulder to cry on. That is kind of a main point, is the representation. most of the probation service at the moment, I think it's 78% mainly white, which isn't reflective of the demographic of the people on actually under probation. So I would say more representation for these women, and by doing that, we are using the lived experience. And lived experience are the best to be able to sort of lead upon and break these barriers that they're facing. So as I mentioned, 2 of our ladies are now working for probation, and that did take a long time. We did have to sit in a lot of meetings and break these barriers down, and we're hoping that they are the reason for change. So that is kind of leading by example, as I mentioned.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know, Glada or Julian, if you wanted to comment.
I would mention maybe as well, like the language barrier and the cultural kind of understanding the cultural needs of the women. I think definitely in Hibiscus, like we make sure that our frontline work when we provide support and services to our clients, they're not only just speaking the client language, but then as well as understanding their culture and where they come from and what are their needs. And I can say definitely from our like work, like the majority of our clients have experienced trafficking, and they are kind of victims of modern slavery. And one of the challenges, they don't know that. They think they've been coming here with a kind of legit relationship with a boyfriend or someone, but actually no, they are being kind of deceived by all these men bringing them. So for us to let them know that this is actually, you have been trafficked, this is, and meet their needs, and as well as making sure that they understand, you know, the kind of risk they are in, and how to apply for benefits, like, you know, how to get to the NRM. It's quite difficult because of this very complex need of our clients.
Thank you. That is just so interesting. I don't think I'd appreciated before the fact that if people are trafficked, then they might not realize that they're being trafficked and think that they've come into the UK legitimately. So that's actually quite an interesting point, and I'm very grateful for you to bringing that out. Okay, we've got a question in the chat from Eleanor, and Eleanor's asking, how, as probation practitioners, can we support women from all backgrounds without being intrusive into their lives? So I don't know, Eleanor, I don't know if you're still here, if you want to probably explain that question a little bit.
Hiya, yeah, can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
So I'm quite new to the service, so I'm still being trained, and I mean, we do our induction appointments. We ask people, you know, what language they prefer to speak in. We ask them what background they're from and all this sort of stuff. But actually, there's not a question about, like, on any of the paperwork to ask if there's any other, there's a general question about other barriers, but it's phrased in a way about childcare and about employment. There's not actually a question that's quite generalized to race and beliefs and culture. And I was just wondering, from all of your experiences, if there's a way that you would word that to people as like an opening question that's not invasive or rude, or I don't know. I don't want to ask a question that seems like I'm asking it to somebody because of the way that they look.
Okay. So I don't know who wants to come in first on that, Hoda?
I think for us, the main issue is maybe not asking questions. Maybe for us guys, it's more, I understand that you may have gone through this, because I understand your culture. I know a bit more about who you are and what you might be facing. They feel the barrier is you're never going to understand. If you show that little bit of knowledge and understanding and that empathy, it normally it causes them to sort of want to disclose and say, yeah, hang on a minute, yeah, I have kind of been through that. But normally, because they've been through sort of police interviews, prison interviews, court interviews, the style of questions normally coming from a professional or a practitioner is straight away met by a barrier. You will never understand. This is why the representation is very important, but also if you can't represent that kind of culture. We're all from different backgrounds, to show that, oh, you come from this background. I understand that you guys sometimes do this, or you normally live, for instance, in more sort of for instance, one of my ladies was married, and I couldn't obviously pick up on the fact that she may have been forced married. So my way of asking was not to sort of say, oh, have you been forced married? It was more so, was there any cultural sort of issues that you want to disclose to me? Is there, we understand that some of your family, some families operate in different ways to others. Being more sensitive in your approach to sort of say, I understand that there might be a language barrier. If there's nothing you don't understand, I can sort that out. I will be able to find somebody if I can't do it myself. Leaving out the questions that would normally be intrusive in terms of, making assumptions. If there are any unconscious bias there, I would normally leave the floor open to them and sort of say, so then where are you originally from? Or is that in Africa? Is that just showing that bit of knowledge normally does break a barrier anyway. And that does come from self-education. We're all still educating ourselves on our jobs as we are practitioners as we go along. But obviously that can be taken, if anything, through training, through self-educating. So when sometimes I'm faced with a client from a different background, I tend to go home and sort of educate myself on what languages they may speak. For instance, Persian, Farsi, Kurdish, they are languages that I'm not very familiar with, and I had to educate myself on where these areas and demographics were spoken from. So maybe the first step should be taken by us as practitioners in order for them to sort of feel comfortable and feel like they can disclose. So maybe self-education, but also showing that understanding that I know you guys exist. I know that you actually live in a community that may differ, or a life that may differ to ours, but I'm happy for you to share that and to be able to unpick that with me. I think with our clients, there's no timeline on how long they take the help or the response. So maybe patience and sort of double checking when they know that you actually are checking on them and care for them, aside of questioning on getting to know them, just checking how are you, on a consistent basis. I think consistency is the key when it comes to working with women. A lot of their relationships have failed, a lot of their family lives have failed. So showing that you are a consistent sort of caring practitioner that is concerned for their welfare and for their general health and well-being normally goes 10 steps further than sort of trying to sort of an hour that you can spend in the office sort of filling out paperwork for them. Just sort of leave it out the paperwork and have that human to human sort of contact with them aside of the legal issues and the offence and what led up to it. So yeah, that's kind of an approach that we take, and it does take longer sometimes, I can guarantee that.
Thank you. I wonder if Hannah or Ebony might want to come in on that as well, from the point of view of their own experience.
Yeah. So mine's more in the wider community. Sorry, I'm just rereading the question. What are the common challenges? It's more so feeling like we're made to feel like we have to conform to what society deems appropriate, because a lot of people have already these preconceived misconceptions in the head of what we're like, but really we can be totally different. And this can be overcome by normalizing and forgiving women, and more so understanding women who have made mistakes. We're only human, and we're not perfect. We're far from it. So just sort of building a rapport with women, and trying to understand fully about what's happened, and then it gives them that opportunity to sort of explain context and their circumstances, rather than somebody else already having a preconceived idea in their head about what the person's like. I know you said, sorry, there was another question as well. I think somebody previously asked, how was a probation practitioner? Maybe have a questionnaire, because I know she mentioned that how would you go about the approach of asking somebody? Maybe have a questionnaire so the other person can actually fill it out. Just an idea. But yeah, that's what I'd say.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, shall we go on to the next question for the panel? So again, we've heard in fact from everybody who spoke about how difficult it can be sometimes for women to engage with support services. part of this might be because of a lack of trust, for example, in the system, or it could be a fear of disclosure, that they might lose their children if they sort of speak up about them or engage with support services. Is there any way, what advice would you give us as panel members about how we could go about encouraging more women to engage with support services?
Hi, I can come in. I think something that has seemed to work in Hibiscus, and I'm sure MWIP would agree, it's having women with lived experience part of the decisions in how those support services are run, in what way, what type of support is being given, having them as clear decision makers and autonomous in that process in the support services. And even better, if some of the services in some ways can have women with lived experience, either previous clients or new clients, running certain sessions or being co-facilitators and working collaboratively in a horizontal way. Like in the very simple human nature, the more that you feel responsible and in control in different dynamics, the more you're likely to continue to be in any group or in any setup or in any event. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know if any other panel member wants to come in on that question. Yeah. So I've got a sort of a follow-up question then, and this is for I think it's for you, Hoda, actually. So you mentioned in your update that one service that you provide is a crime reporting service. So I wanted to ask a little bit about what that involves and why you have it, because I'm assuming it has to do with women not engaging with support services. Well,
the idea of a crime reporting centre is prevention before cause, so leading up to sort of women normally are aware of crimes or are aware of themselves being groomed or sort of coerced into things that are wrong. The idea of a safe space and a crime reporting centre anonymises them, but also ensures that they're not having to go straight to the police. To kind of, a lot of women are run by loyalty to their families, to their partners, so it's obviously something very hard for them to disclose, but it obviously implicates them if they were to then later on be sort of implicated in these offences that are normally led by men or have a hand of a man in their offending, as we've seen with Hannah. So normally what we think is creating the safe space within the community, that isn't a police station, that isn't a court centre or somewhere sort of official, to be able to come in a normal setting and sort of report crime before as a preventative measure, in order for them to then be witnesses rather than culprits or defendants in crimes. So it means that the woman is actually able to be heard from the right side of the case, rather than having to be implicated and also given these disproportionate sentences. We work in a way where we're community led, so if we don't take ownership ourselves and take that kind of responsibility, then it's on us why the ladies do not disclose later on. We operated 3 doors down from a woman. If she's not able to come to us and disclose to us what is going on around her before things get complicated and before she's implicated, then she's not going to walk down to the police station and do that. So what we have is a lot of police officers do then later on come to our centre and speak to me and Sophie, because we have neighbourhood officers who also operate from our centre, which means that we are community led, but we are also then passing on that information in the correct manner, in the right way, and these women are able to take interviews from a neutral setting, because voluntary interviews normally are led or are told to sort of come down to the police station. We're able to provide that nurturing environment for them to disclose, and we've learned that this actually does work, and that our ladies, it is a way of being able to sort of use the recommendation or correct the recommendation of where David Lammy has mentioned that these women are disproportionately sentenced, where we're able to sort of intercept the crime before it even takes place, or before it even sort of implicates our ladies. Our women are normally sort of witness to the crime, but are then later on sort of sentence. So it gives us that allowance or that leverage to be able to sort of differentiate between the how culprit they are in the offence, which normally we have noticed that these ladies have very low culpability, a very low sort of offending risk. So it means that they're able to at least be protected by the law rather than being subjected to law enforcement upon them.
Right, thank you. That is so interesting. Thanks. So I guess this is a way of sort of addressing early on that link that we have between women as victims and women as perpetrators. It sort of helps to hopefully break that link. You know, I know this is an ongoing issue that we come across as policy and operational people quite a lot. They can be difficult. So somebody's being coerced as a victim, but then because they've committed a crime, they're also then, you know, a perpetrator as well. So it is a very, very difficult dynamic, I think, to unpick and to separate. So it's really great that there's some early intervention taking place that can help to do that. So thank you very much for that. All right, so we've only got a few more minutes left. So we've got one last question that we wanted to put to our panel members. And this I'm going to probably be a bit naughty and ask Hibiscus if you could answer this question about what more can we do to help women with language or literacy barriers. So I've included language and literacy because we know that it's not just speaking English that can be a problem, but it's also reading it. So if you're getting letters and things like that from, you know, that you can't then read to appreciate what the content is saying to you, that can be quite difficult. So I'll be quiet now and let you speak up, Carter.
Yeah, thank you so much, Janice. So I would say probably, and maybe I'm just more reflecting on the kind of thematic groups that when we met with the women to develop the action plan, and one of their demands was to have a really like simple language that when a police officer or anyone from the criminal justice system get like in contact with them, just to use simple words that they understand, because apparently the jargon that being used, they don't understand it, they don't know their rights. They would say we were being kind of stopped, and they were being telling us that this, that, and until we got into prison, we don't even know why we are in prison, what are our rights, because that we don't understand the language. No, yeah. I'm talking about people speak English, not don't speak English. So we have the people don't speak True. English. That's another like issue and problem, because people have to have different information for different languages available for the people that are being kind of stopped by the police, as well as when the people speak English, as you say, it could be kind of have a literacy barrier. They can't understand it. Their education is very much low. They don't understand these jargon. So so then this is an issue. So it would be very good to for all of the kind of people working, you know, the staff working at the Ministry of Justice, to make sure that they will tell, like, the information is very clear and simple, and as well as they would say, for example, when they meet with their solicitors, the language is very like legal, and they don't understand it, they don't know their rights, and they will miss out on appeal or on any of the issues, and they will lose you know, their rights. So I would say, yes, definitely make sure that the information is very simple.
All right, thank you. I think if anybody else wants to comment as well.
Just one thing that we've kind of realised is the barring and disclosure document, which is about that thick. When some of the ladies receive it, it obviously has in there very contentious legal language that means that it is life. It actually says on the envelope, this document will change your life. So it is life-changing information, which obviously means that some of our ladies are not able to understand that, but means that they are offending if they are not sort of adhering to the licence issues issues, or to the barring and disclosure of document. I mean, one of the ladies came to our office with a document that thick, and we were quite astounded that she was supposed to be sort of understanding, and sort of in there we realised she can't work with adults, she can't work with children, she was unaware. So, you know, it's very important. Also, another thing that I've realised is with pre-sentencing reports, a lot of ladies do not take that option, which should be sort of taken into consideration, because they don't understand the reason for a pre-sentencing report, which is kind of the final chance to disclose anything or to mitigate anything for them. A lot of them see it as a legal application. I don't know why I'm getting sentenced anyway. There's no point doing it. It actually works in their favour. So, you know, it's educating them in a sense, not only on the language, but also on their rights. How do we educate them when we're not breaking the information down to them? So, you know, the girl had received this document and was completely frightened and come running down to the centre and was like, I've received this. I know it's a legal document. I know it's something from the government. What am I doing? So it's kind of creating a more simplistic way, a more, you know, these ladies taking into consideration their backgrounds, but taking into consideration the low levels of literacy and the lack of life skills to be able to sort of break down the information. And translation services are very hard to get hold of. So if we are able to at least break down the information, it would make it easy to then further on translate it or find legal translators for it.
Thank you. Thank you. So that's actually really helpful as well. So I think all of us as policymakers and producers of operational guidance and so on can definitely bear that in mind as we go forward. So that was the last of the questions that we had pre-prepared for the panel. So I've got just opening up one more chance for if there's anybody else who has a question that they might want to raise with the panel at all. Okay. It doesn't seem as if we've got any other questions. So I'm going to draw this event to a close. And can I say thank you so much to our panel members and the ladies that came. It was really, really interesting. I think I could sit and listen to you all day, you know. So thank you so much for taking your time and for coming and presenting. We really do appreciate you. Thank you very much. And thanks as well to all our people that came, our attendees. Thank you all for coming, and people that put questions in. Thank you also for that as well. Really, really excellent. So thank you very much, everybody. I'm giving you 10 minutes of your life back. So thank you all very much. All right. So bye.